A top-tier carbon fiber road bike sells for $12,000. The frame on that bike costs the manufacturer somewhere between $300 and $800 to produce. That is not a typo. The most celebrated material in the history of cycling, the one every brand has been selling as the future of the sport for the last 3 decades, has a raw production cost lower than a mid-range smartphone. And yet carbon fiber dominates every professional peloton on Earth. It is lighter, stiffer, and more aerodynamic than any metal frame ever built. So which is it? Is carbon fiber a genuine engineering marvel? Or the most profitable illusion the cycling industry has ever sold? The answer, as it turns out, is both. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to 1986. That year, a small American company called Kestrel released something radical at the Long Beach Bike Show. It was called the Kestrel 4000, and it was the first fully bonded carbon fiber road bike ever sold to the public. No lugs, no welds, no metal joints, just a single molded carbon shell. The cycling press lost their minds. The frame was lighter than anything anyone had seen, and it looked like a spaceship. Within 2 years, Trek and Specialized had joined the race, and the carbon revolution had begun. But the early carbon revolution had a problem. The bikes broke. Not all of them, but enough of them. Frames cracked at the bottom bracket. Forks snapped during hard descents. Bonding agents failed in heat. Some of the most expensive bikes in cycling were being quietly returned in bags, and the lawsuits that followed shaped how carbon was regulated inside the sport. By the late 90s, the cycling governing body, the UCI, stepped in with a rule that still exists today. Every road bike used in professional competition has to weigh at least 6.8 kilograms. That rule was written partly to protect rider safety and partly to slow down the weight war that carbon had started. And here is where the first strange thing happened. Carbon kept getting better. Layup techniques improved. Resin systems stabilized. By the late 2000s, manufacturers were producing frames under 700 grams, but the UCI weight minimum did not move, which meant that for the last 15 years, professional teams have been quietly adding weights to their bikes just to make them legal. Lead inserts in the seat posts, heavier wheel bearings, steel bolts instead of titanium ones. The bikes are literally being held back by a rule written before most modern carbon was even possible. So if the UCI is artificially inflating bike weight and the pros cannot actually use the lightest frames available, who is the weight war really for? You, the consumer. That is where the marketing language comes in. Walk into a bike shop today and you will hear phrases like vertical compliance, lateral stiffness, torsional rigidity, and aerodynamic efficiency. Every brand claims their latest frame is the perfect balance of all four. And the funny thing is, most of it is true. Modern carbon fiber frames are measurably stiffer where you need them to be, and measurably more comfortable where you don't. The problem is that the differences between the flagship frames from Trek, Specialized, Cannondale, Giant, Canyon, and Cervelo are so small that almost no rider below a professional level can feel them. In blind tests, experienced club cyclists routinely guess wrong about which frame is which. The marketing language exists because the actual performance differences at the top do not. But we still need to answer the big question. How is it possible that a frame which retails for $8,000 costs a few $100s to produce? And this is where the story gets interesting, because the answer involves a small industrial district in Taichung, Taiwan. Most of the world's high-end carbon fiber frames are made in a surprisingly small number of factories. Giant Manufacturing Company, headquartered in Taichung, produces frames not only for the Giant brand, but also for Trek, Scott, Colnago at times, and a long list of smaller boutique labels. Merida makes frames for Specialized. Ideal Bike Corporation has made frames for countless brands that never show their name on a box. In Shenzhen and Dongguan, mainland Chinese factories stamp out frames for direct-to-consumer brands that then sell them at a fraction of the price, with the same carbon, from the same molds, on the same production lines. The industry does not advertise this, because part of what you are buying when you choose a Pinarello over a Chinese open mold frame is the branding, the paint quality, the warranty, the dealer network, and the story. The actual frame might have come from a building one street over. This raises an uncomfortable question. If most carbon frames are made in the same few places, why are some brands 3 times more expensive than others? The honest answer is research and development, paint and finishing quality, quality control standards, warranty coverage, and marketing budget. A Trek or Specialized frame goes through more prototyping, more wind tunnel time, more testing cycles, and more strict quality inspections than a generic open mold frame from a direct-to-consumer brand. Sometimes that matters. Sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the rider. However, there is one area where the premium brands genuinely earn their price, and that is durability. Because carbon fiber has a dirty secret that almost nobody talks about. It does not fail like metal. When a steel or aluminum frame is damaged, it bends. When a carbon fiber frame is damaged, it cracks, sometimes invisibly. A bike can be in a minor crash, sit in a garage for 6 months, and then catastrophically fail during a descent because the impact created hidden fiber damage that was never visible from the outside. This is why every major carbon brand now runs crash replacement programs. Trek, Specialized, Cannondale, and Giant all offer discounted replacement frames for customers who damage theirs in a wreck. It is part insurance, part liability management, and part acknowledgement that carbon bikes, beautiful as they are, can fail in ways that metal frames cannot. The good news is that damaged carbon is surprisingly repairable. Companies like Calfee Design in California and Ruckus Composites in Portland have built entire businesses around carbon frame repair. They scan frames with ultrasound, cut out damaged sections, rebuild the layup, and cure the resin in industrial autoclaves. A carbon bike that would be scrap metal as aluminum can often be fully restored for $1,000. That is a genuine advantage of the material that almost nobody talks about. But the resale market tells a different story. Carbon bikes lose value faster than almost any other sporting equipment on Earth. A flagship frame that cost $10,000 new is worth maybe $4,000 in excellent condition 3 years later. Why? Because every year the manufacturers release a new flagship that is slightly stiffer, slightly more aero, slightly more refined, and last year's model instantly becomes old news. If you buy at the top of the market, expecting to recoup your investment, you will be disappointed. Carbon bikes are like new cars. The second you ride them home, they start depreciating, and the depreciation curve is steep. So where does that leave the scam or genius question? Carbon fiber is genius. There is no other material in history that has allowed engineers to build bikes this light, this stiff, and this aerodynamic. The technology itself is real. The performance is real. The sport has been transformed by it in ways that are not going backwards. But the pricing model is closer to a scam, or at least to a highly optimized profit engine. You are paying for research, brand prestige, warranty coverage, and the story the marketing department has told you. The actual carbon coming out of the mold is nearly identical to carbon coming out of a factory on the same street under a different label. The gap between the $3,000 carbon bike and the $12,000 carbon bike is real, but it is nowhere near as large as the price difference suggests. So should you buy a carbon fiber road bike? Yes, if you love the way they ride and can afford the tier that makes you happy. No, if you are doing it because a brand told you it would make you faster than the rider next to you. Because at the end of the day, the rider is still the engine. Carbon is just the most beautiful wrapping paper the cycling industry has ever invented. Thanks for watching. If you want more investigations into what the cycling industry doesn't want you to know, stick around.